The mansion's iron gates towered over her, reflecting lightning in their polished curves. Lily wiped rain from her eyes, clutching the photograph tighter. Her heart raced not because of the cold, but because behind those gates lived a man who might hold every answer she'd been searching for. A guard stepped out, his umbrella larger than the girl herself. "You can't be here, miss," he said sternly, though his eyes softened when he saw her drenched and shivering. I need to see him," Lily pleaded. "Mr. Michael Stone. Please, just tell him. Someone with the same birthmark came to see him." The guard frowned, glancing at her wrist. He hesitated. Something in her tone, a blend of desperation and quiet hope, made him pause. "Wait here," he muttered before vanishing inside. Lily's breath fogged in the cold air. Each minute stretched endlessly. Her shoes were muddy, her hands numb. She remembered the small apartment she'd left behind, her mother's weak smile before she passed away 2 months ago. Find him, her mother had whispered. He deserves to know. And now here she was, standing before the life she never had. Inside the mansion, warm light spilled from chandeliers. The guard's shoes squeaked on marble floors as he approached the living room. "Sir," he said cautiously, "there's a girl outside. Says she wants to see you. Claims you might be her father." Michael Stone, one of the wealthiest men in the city, looked up from his glass of whiskey. The fire crackled behind him. "Another one," he muttered bitterly. "Tell her to leave." But when the guard mentioned the birthmark, Michael froze. His fingers tightened around the glass. "Birthmark," he repeated, his voice low. "Where?" "On her wrist. Same shape as yours, sir." For a long moment, silence filled the room, heavy and uneasy. Then Michael stood. "Bring her in." Lily's heart nearly stopped when the gates opened. She walked through the grand path lined with roses and marble fountains. Her reflection rippled in the water, small and uncertain. When she entered the mansion, warmth surrounded her, but she still felt cold. Michael appeared at the top of the staircase, tall, composed, but his eyes carried a storm. He descended slowly, every step echoing like a heartbeat. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice firm yet trembling beneath control. Lily stepped forward, holding up the photo. I think you're my father." He looked at the picture, then at her. The resemblance was undeniable. The curve of the jaw, the birthmark, even the same shade of eyes. His throat tightened, but his mind resisted. "That's impossible," he whispered. "My mother's name was Grace," Lily said softly. "You met her 18 years ago, in Greenfield. You promised you'd come back, but you never did." Michael's face paled. The name hit him like a wave from the past. He remembered a quiet woman with kind eyes, the one who'd love him before the money, before everything changed. He turned away, voice cracking. "Why now, after all these years?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Because she's gone. And before she left, she said you deserved to know I existed." The room fell silent except for the fire's hiss. Michael stared into the flames, haunted by choices long buried. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters. The thunder outside faded into rain again. Michael took a deep breath and said quietly, "You shouldn't have come." Lily flinched as if struck. "Why?" "Because I can't be what you're looking for." Her lips trembled. "I wasn't looking for money. I was looking for you." He turned away, unable to meet her gaze. Guilt and fear fought inside him. Years of silence had built walls he didn't know how to break. Lily stood there for a moment, then whispered, "I just wanted to know if you ever thought about me." And before he could answer, she walked out, back into the rain that had been waiting for her all along. The door closed softly behind her, leaving Michael alone with the echo of her words. Outside, Lily clutched the photograph to her chest as the city lights blurred through her tears. Somewhere deep inside, a tiny spark of hope refused to die. The storm had only just begun. Lily didn't know where her feet were taking her. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the ache inside her chest grew heavier with every step away from that mansion. The streetlights blurred through her tears, and a reflection in every puddle looked smaller, lonelier. She pressed her hand over the photograph again, the ink bleeding slightly from the rain. She thought about his eyes, the same color as Hayes, filled not with anger, but fear. That kind of fear that hides the truth. Deep down, she knew he wasn't lying when he said it was impossible. He was protecting something, or someone. Back in the mansion, Michael stood motionless by the window, watching the girl disappear into the gray evening. His hands trembled as he picked up the photograph she had left behind on the table. It was the same one Grace had given him before he left all those years ago. He remembered that day vividly, the small cafe near the train station, the smell of coffee, and her eyes when she said, "Just promise me you won't forget us." But life had changed too quickly. His family, his fortune, his reputation, all built on a lie he could never undo. He sank into his chair, the photograph shaking in his grip. "Grace," he whispered, voice cracking, "you should have told me." Meanwhile, Lily found herself back at the small bus station where she had first arrived in the city. The benches were cold, the vending machine hummed softly, and a single old janitor swept the floor with tired motions. She sat there, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the raindrops sliding down the window. Her phone buzzed, a reminder she had set weeks ago. Mom's birthday. She swallowed hard, feeling her heart twist. "Happy birthday, Mom," she whispered. "I tried." A gentle voice broke her thoughts. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Lily looked up. It was a janitor, an older woman with gray hair tucked under a scarf, her eyes soft and kind. She handed Lily a cup of warm tea from a thermos. "You look like you've been standing in the rain too long." Lily smiled faintly, accepting it. "Thank you. I just had a long day." The woman nodded. "Those are the ones that teach us the most." She sat beside her, leaning on her broom. "You remind me of my daughter, always chasing the truth, even when it hurts." Lily stared into the steam of her tea. "I thought I'd finally found my father, but I think I just made a mistake." "Sometimes," the woman said, "truth takes time to recognize, and sometimes people hide it because they are scared it'll break what's left of them." Lily blinked, her lips parting slightly. Those words felt heavier than they should. "If you were in that moment," Lily said softly, almost to herself, "would you have told the truth?" The woman smiled gently. "Always, even if it costs everything." Lily nodded slowly. Something inside her, a mix of pain and clarity, began to settle. Maybe she wasn't wrong for trying. Maybe she just wasn't ready for the answer yet. As she sipped her tea, the warmth spread through her like a fragile kind of hope. She didn't have much, but she still had that hope that maybe someday she'd be seen. If you were there in that moment, the narrator might whisper to the viewers, "What would you have done?" Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters. Later that night, Michael couldn't sleep. He walked through the silent halls of his mansion, his footsteps echoing like ghosts. Every portrait on the wall seemed to watch him, reminders of the life he built, but not the life he lived. He opened a drawer and pulled out an old wooden box. Inside were letters, yellowed with age. One envelope, never opened, caught his eye. The handwriting was Grace's. He tore it open with shaking fingers. "Michael, if you ever find this, it means I couldn't wait anymore. I didn't want to burden your world with ours. But if one day our daughter finds you, don't turn her away. She has your eyes, your kindness, and your strength. Don't let her feel like she doesn't belong." Michael sat down heavily, tears streaking down his face. The letter slipped from his hand and landed beside the photograph. For the first time in years, the billionaire who had everything felt utterly poor. He stood abruptly, grabbed his coat, and stepped out into the night. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. By the time Michael reached the bus station, dawn had started to bloom across the horizon. The streets glistened, washed clean by rain. He searched desperately until he saw her, asleep on a bench, clutching the photograph to her chest like it was the only thing left that mattered. He stopped for a moment, his throat tightening. Then, quietly, he approached and whispered, "Lily." Her eyes fluttered open. She blinked up at him, confused, then afraid. Michael knelt beside her, voice breaking. I was wrong. The words hung in the cold morning air, trembling like his hands. Lily sat up slowly, blinking against the pale morning light. Michael's coat was draped over her shoulders, still warm from his body heat. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, that maybe the night's pain had just been a cool nightmare. But when she saw the lines in his face and the sorrow in his eyes, she knew it was real. You came back, she whispered, voice fragile. Michael nodded, kneeling before her. I read your mother's letter, he said, voice trembling with something between guilt and love. She wanted me to know, and I should have. I should have looked for you. Lily's eyes filled instantly. Why didn't you? He exhaled shakily. Because I was a coward. I let pride and fear decide for me. I thought keeping quiet would protect everyone, my family, my name. But I forgot the one person who deserved to be protected most. Lily stared at him for a long time. The man before her, the billionaire whose name carried power, now looked small, almost broken. She wanted to be angry, to shout at him for the years she spent hungry, for the birthdays she celebrated alone. But instead, all she felt was the ache of understanding. Michael looked down at the photo in her hands. That's the day I promised your mother I'd come back, he said softly. And every night since, I tried to forget her because remembering hurt too much. But seeing you, it's like she's standing here again. Lily's throat tightened. She never stopped believing you'd come. The word shattered him. His shoulders shook as he looked away, tears catching in the faint sunlight creeping through the station window. For the first time, the man who had built empires let himself break. I don't expect forgiveness, he whispered, but I can't let you walk away again. Please, come with me. Let me try to fix what I destroyed. Lily hesitated. You can't buy what I needed. I'm not trying to, Michael said. Just let me be your father, even if it's only for one day. Something in his tone softened her walls. She looked at him, really looked, and saw not a billionaire, but a man crushed by his own regret. She nodded faintly. Okay, one day. Michael exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. He offered his hand, and this time, she took it. The drive back to his mansion was quiet. The sun had fully risen, washing the wet streets in gold. Birds perched on traffic lights, singing against the hum of cars. It was a new day, fragile, but possible. When they arrived, the servants looked startled. Michael ignored their stays, guiding Lily inside gently. The same grand chandelier that once intimidated her now flickered softly, almost welcoming. He led her to a small breakfast room filled with light. A table was already set with fruits, pastries, and tea. Lily stayed, wide-eyed. This is too much, she murmured. It's just breakfast, Michael said, trying to smile. A father should feed his daughter, shouldn't he? Lily laughed faintly, the sound awkward but sincere. It's been a long time since I sat at a table like this. Michael poured her tea, his hands trembling. You shouldn't have had to wait this long. As she took a sip, she watched him quietly, the way he avoided her gaze, the guilt written in his movements. He wasn't pretending to care. He was trying to remember how. Mr. Stone, a voice called from the hall. Michael's wife appeared, elegant, sharp, with suspicion in her eyes. Behind her stood a boy around Lily's age, neatly dressed. Who is she? The woman asked, her tone slicing through the room. Michael froze. Lily's heart pounded. The warmth of the morning collapsed into silence. She's... Michael began, but the words caught. The woman's eyes narrowed. She's what? Michael. Lily stood quickly, panic flashing in her eyes. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come. Michael reached out instinctively. Lily, wait. But she was already moving, her voice shaking. I don't want to ruin your family. I just wanted to know the truth. The woman turned to her husband. Truth, she echoed bitterly. Michael, what truth? He couldn't speak. The silence was his confession. Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she ran through the corridor. The servants whispered. Doors creaked open. The mansion that once felt golden now felt suffocating. Lily. Michael's voice echoed down the hall. He chased her to the front steps, but she had already pushed open the doors and stepped into the cold morning. He stopped at the threshold, breathing hard. His wife's voice trembled behind him. "Tell me that girl isn't yours." He turned slowly, eyes wet. "She is." For a moment, the world went still. His wife gasped softly, not out of rage, but heartbreak. The boy in the hole stayed silently, trying to understand. If you were there in that moment, the narrator whispers, "What would you have done? Be honest. Would you have stayed silent or spoken the truth?" Michael's chest heaved as he looked back outside. Lily was gone again, swallowed by the mourning crowd. But this time, he knew he couldn't let her disappear. Not again. He grabbed his keys, ignoring his wife's calls, and ran to his car. The past had finally found him, and he wasn't running anymore. Michael's car tore down the narrow streets, tires hissing against wet asphalt. The city was awake now. School buses honking, people rushing to work, umbrellas opening like small shields against the drizzle. But he saw none of it. His eyes darted left and right, searching every corner, every bus stop, every moving face. Lily couldn't have gone far. Not this time. Back near the park, she walked aimlessly, her shoes squelching through puddles. The early chill bit at her skin, but her mind was louder than the cold. Every word from that mansion replayed in her head. "I can't be what you're looking for, and she is." She'd never wanted to ruin anything. She just wanted to belong somewhere. She sat down on a damp bench beneath a withered tree, the kind that seemed to sag under its own memories. Pulling out the photograph again, she pressed it flat against her lap. The ink had smudged from the rain, but the smiles were still there, the only proof she'd ever had of a connection. A small boy playing with a paper boat nearby splashed water on her shoe by accident. "Sorry," he chirped, flashing a toothy grin. Lily smiled faintly. "It's okay." His mother called out, "Come on, Noah," and the boy ran off, his laughter echoing through the park. For some reason, it made her chest ache. Innocence always reminded her of what she'd lost too soon. Meanwhile, Michael slowed his car near the same park. And then he saw her, hunched over, alone, the world rushing past her as if it didn't exist. He pulled over, his breath catching. He stepped out quietly, approaching like a man crossing thin ice. "Lily," he said softly. She turned. Her eyes, red and glossy, widened. "Why are you here?" "Because I should have been here all along," he said, voice breaking. I told her the truth. My wife, my son. They deserved that. But you deserve me now. Not a man who hides behind guilt. Lily shook her head, her voice trembling. "It's not that simple, Michael. You have a family. I'm just. You're my daughter," he cut in gently. "Nothing changes that. Nothing ever will." For the first time, she saw it. Not pity, not shame, but love. Real, fragile, late love. He sat beside her, the rain softening into mist. For a while, neither spoke. They just listened to the distant hum of life, dogs barking, horns honking, leaves rustling. Michael finally whispered, "You know, your mother used to laugh at everything, even when I'd spill coffee on my shirt or forget birthdays. She said life's too short to stay angry." Lily smiled faintly. She used to hum when she cooked. The same song every morning. He turned to her, eyes soft. "Yeah, the one about sunlight and second chances." They shared a quiet laugh, the kind that breaks the ice between two lifetimes. Then Michael reached into his pocket and handed her a small locket. "This was Hayes," he said. "I kept it all these years, even when I tried to forget." Inside was a photo, Grace holding baby Lily. Lily's hands trembled as she traced her mother's smile. "I thought it was lost." "She never lost hope," Michael said. "And maybe she passed that to you." The sky began to clear, sunlight filtering through clouds. It bathed the park in a soft golden haze, making even the puddles shimmer. Michael turned slightly, his voice tender. "I can't erase the past, but I can start making up for it, if you'll let me." Lily looked at him. This man who once represented everything unreachable and saw something she'd never imagined possible. Sincerity. She nodded slowly. "Okay, but we start small." Michael smiled for the first time in years. "Small works." He offered to drive her home, but she hesitated. "I walk most of the time. Makes me feel closer to Mom." Then I'll walk with you, he said simply. So they did, down cracked sidewalks and through soft light. He matched her pace, careful not to rush the moment. Every step felt like stitching two broken timelines together. As they neared the small street where she lived, Lily glanced at him. You don't have to come all the way. I know, he said, but I want to. At her doorstep, they stood awkwardly for a moment. You really read her letter? Lily asked. Every word, he replied, and I'll keep reading it until I become the man she believed I could be. She smiled, shy, uncertain, but real. Then maybe you'll meet her again someday. Michael looked up at the sky, voice breaking softly. Maybe I already have. He turned to leave, but Lily called after him. Michael? He stopped. Thank you for coming back. He smiled faintly and whispered, Thank you for not giving up. She watched him disappear down the street, feeling lighter than she had in years. Now it's your turn. The narrator's voice seems to say softly to the viewers, share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. That night, Lily sat by her window, the locket resting on her palm. Outside, the city glittered, not cruel, but alive. Somewhere across town, Michael sat in his study, staring at Grace's photograph beside Lily's. For the first time, both of them fell asleep with the same thought. Maybe it isn't too late. Days passed quietly, like gentle ripples on still water. For the first time, Lily felt a kind of calm she hadn't known before. Fragile, yet comforting. Michael kept his promise. Every morning, he'd call to check if she'd eaten. Sometimes he'd drop by her small apartment with groceries, pretending it was just extra food from the house. At first, she kept her distance, unsure how to accept kindness from a man who'd once turned her away. But with every visit, every hesitant smile, the invisible wall between them began to crack. One afternoon, Michael invited her to the park, the same one where he'd found her. He brought 2 cups of coffee, one black, one with too much sugar. Your mother liked it this way, he said with a small laugh. Lily took the sugary one, smiling. Guess I inherited that too. They sat on the bench under the same withered tree, sunlight streaming through branches. Children ran around, laughter echoing through the air. For a while, it almost felt like they'd always been this way, father and daughter sharing quiet moments. But peace is a strange way of testing itself. A sleek black car pulled up near the park's edge. The door opened, and out stepped Michael's wife, Eleanor. She stood still for a moment, watching them from afar, her face unreadable. Michael noticed first. His chest tightened, the paper coffee cup crumpling slightly in his hand. Lily, he said softly, there's something I need to handle. Lily followed his gaze. Her stomach dropped. Is that? Yes, he said. My wife. Lily froze. She came here. Eleanor walked toward them, each step slow, deliberate. Her heels clicked against the stone path, the sound sharp as glass. When she finally reached them, her eyes softened on Lily before turning to Michael. So it's true, she said quietly. Michael nodded. Yes. For a long, heavy moment, none of them spoke. The city sounds around them faded, replaced by the rhythm of 3 hearts unsure of their next move. Eleanor's gaze returned to Lily. You have her eyes. Grace's. Lily blinked, startled. You knew my mother. A sad smile touched Eleanor's lips. We met once, years ago. I didn't know who she was then. I only realized when Michael told me the truth. Michael swallowed hard. Eleanor. She raised a hand, stopping him. No more lies. She turned to Lily. You didn't deserve any of this. The silence, the distance. You deserved a father who stood by you. Lily's eyes welled up. I never wanted to take anything from you. I just wanted to know who I was. Eleanor nodded, her voice breaking slightly. And now you do. You're strong, like your mother, and kinder than any of us deserve. Tears slipped down Lily's cheeks. For a moment, she saw not anger in Eleanor's face but empathy, a rare, unexpected grace. Have you ever had someone forgive you when you least expected it? The narrator's voice whispers softly. Leave a red heart hash if that moment still lives in your heart. Michael stood there in silence, emotion choking him. He reached for Eleanor's hand, unsure if he had the right. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "I know," she whispered. "But you did. We all did." Eleanor turned to leave, but before she did, she looked back at Lily. "Take care of him," she said gently. "He's stubborn, but he means well." Lily managed a soft smile through her tears. "I will." As Eleanor walked away, the sunlight caught her hair, turning it gold before she disappeared into the crowd. Michael sank onto the bench beside Lily, running a hand over his face. "I don't deserve any of this. Not forgiveness. Not you." Lily shook her head. "Maybe that's the point. None of us deserve love. We just learn to accept it when it finally shows up." He looked at her, eyes glistening. "Grace used to say that too." Lily smiled faintly. "Then maybe I really am your daughter." For the first time, Michael laughed, a quiet, genuine sound that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Be honest." The voice of the story whispers to the audience. "Could you forgive after what they did?" Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Later that evening, they walked together again, this time not as strangers bound by guilt, but as two people learning how to heal. Michael looked at her and said softly, "I want to show you something tomorrow. Something your mother left behind." "What is it?" Lily asked. He smiled faintly. "You'll see. It's time you knew everything." As the city lights flickered to life, their shadows stretched across the pavement, one tall and steady, the other small but growing stronger with each step. Somewhere between their silence and the city's heartbeat, something fragile began to bloom: forgiveness. The next morning arrived with a soft glow spilling through the blinds. Lily barely slept. Her heart fluttered between curiosity and fear. What could her mother have left behind? And why had Michael waited until now to show her? When he arrived, dressed simply in jeans and a gray sweater, he looked different. Not like the billionaire the world saw, but like a man stripped down to what mattered. He smiled gently when Lily opened the door. "Ready?" She nodded. "As I'll ever be." They drove quietly out of the city, past the skyline that shimmered in the distance, until the roads became narrower and quieter. The noise faded into birdsong and rustling trees. After nearly an hour, the car slowed before a small countryside house, faded blue paint, ivy crawling up its walls, and a wind chime tinkling softly by the porch. "This place," Lily whispered. "It looks familiar." Michael nodded. "It should. You were born here." Her breath caught. She stepped out slowly, eyes wide as she took in the little garden out front, overgrown but alive. Daisies peeked from between weeds. The wooden swing creaked faintly in the breeze. She could almost see her mother sitting there, humming that same tune, Sunlight and Second Chances. Michael unlocked the door. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and lavender. The furniture was simple, the walls lined with faded photographs, most of them of Grace. Lily touched one gently, her mother holding her as a baby, sunlight catching both their faces. "She looks happy," Lily murmured. "She was," Michael said softly. Even when life gave her so little, she found joy in everything. He walked toward a small chest in the corner. Kneeling down, he opened it and pulled out a neatly wrapped box. Dust motes floated in the air as he lifted the lid and handed it to Lily. Inside were her mother's journals, leather-bound, edges worn. "She wrote every day," Michael said, "even after I left. I didn't know about these until recently. She mentioned them in the letter." Lily's fingers trembled as she picked one up. The handwriting inside was delicate, curling like the voice of someone who still believed in love. She read a few lines aloud. "I don't hate him. Maybe I should, but love doesn't vanish that easily. If he never comes back, I'll still tell Lily stories about the kind man I once knew, not the man who left, but the one who promised the world." Her voice broke. "She still loved you." Michael's eyes glistened. "I don't deserve that kind of love." "She didn't love because you deserved it," Lily whispered. "She loved because it's who she was." They sat in silence, the kind that hurts but heals at the same time. The house seemed to breathe again, every wall echoing with memories that had waited years to be heard. Lily turned another page. There was a pressed daisy, carefully taped between the sheets. Underneath, her mother had written, If she ever finds him, I hope he's learned how to see beauty in simple things again. Lily looked up. She wanted you to have this. Michael's hand shook as he took the journal. She never stopped believing in me, even when I stopped believing in myself. They spent hours reading in quiet reverence, piecing together a love story that had survived time and distance. As the afternoon light shifted golden, Michael stood and walked toward the window. Outside, the field stretched endlessly, the same field where he and Grace had once dreamed of a future they never got to build. He took a deep breath and said, I don't think forgiveness is something you earn. It's something you live up to every day. Lily closed the journal and smiled through tears. Then live it. For her. He turned, meeting her gaze. And for you. The moment hung between them, raw, real, beautiful. If you believe love still wins, the narrator's voice murmurs gently, comment, Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. As evening fell, the two of them stood outside the little house, watching the sunset melt into shades of gold and rose. The wind carried the soft jingle of the chime again, and for the first time, both of them smiled without pain behind it. Lily whispered, She'd be happy, wouldn't she? Michael looked at her, the reflection of grace in her smile. She already is. They stood there a while longer, saying nothing. Sometimes, silence was the only prayer they needed. When they finally drove back, the city lights welcomed them home. Not as strangers bound by guilt, but as a family stitched together by love rediscovered. And as they crossed a bridge into the city, Michael looked out at the skyline and said softly, Tomorrow we'll start over. The next few weeks passed like the gentle unfolding of spring after long winter. The cracks in their lives slowly began to fill with light. Awkward breakfasts turned into laughter, old wounds softened with small acts of care. Michael insisted on helping Lily move into a better apartment, but she refused politely. I don't want comfort to erase the lessons, she said with a faint smile. So instead, he helped her repaint her walls, fix the flickering bulb, and even set up a small bookshelf for her mother's journals. He was learning how to be a father in quiet ways, one phone call, one shared cup of coffee, one apology at a time. Sometimes they'd visit Grace's resting place together. Michael would bring white lilies, Lily would bring daisies. Standing side by side, they didn't speak much. Words felt too small in the presence of what they'd lost and found again. One afternoon, while leaving the cemetery, Michael said, I keep thinking about something your mother wrote, about beauty in simple things. I used to believe success was proof of love, that if I provided enough, I was doing enough. But now, I see loves in the moments you can't buy. Lily looked at him, her voice quiet but sure. Then keep choosing those moments. He smiled. I will. Back at his office, Michael called his assistant and said something that left everyone stunned. I'm taking a break. A long one. Family comes first now. It was the first time in decades he'd said the word family with warmth. That night, he visited Lily again, bringing an envelope. What's this? She asked. Something I should have done years ago. Inside were papers, her birth certificate updated with his name, and a small trust fund. Lily looked at him, startled. You didn't have to. I know, he interrupted softly, but I wanted to. Not because of guilt, but because I'm proud you're mine. Tears welled in her eyes. She hugged him, hesitant at first, then tighter, as if afraid to let go again. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the city lights flickered softly through a window. Michael's heart felt lighter than it had in decades. Later that evening, they sat by the window eating takeout noodles, laughing about who got more sauce on their clothes. It wasn't the kind of dinner billionaires had, but it was real. If this story touched you, the narrator might say gently to the viewers, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be a way of saying, I felt you. Weeks later, on a quiet Sunday, Michael brought Lily to a community center. Children's laughter filled the halls, volunteers setting up tables with food and supplies. What is this place? Lily asked. Your mother's dream, Michael said softly. She wanted to build a space for children without families, somewhere they could feel seen. Lily's breath caught. You're reopening it. He nodded. In her name and yours. The sign above the door read, Grace House, for every child who waits to be found. Tears blurred Lily's vision. She turned to him. You really did this. He smiled gently. We did this. They spent the day helping, handing out meals, reading stories to children, and sharing quiet smiles. Every laugh, every small hug from a child felt like another piece of healing clicking into place. By evening, Lily sat on the steps outside, the golden sun dipping behind the rooftops. Michael joined her, their hands resting side by side. She looked at him and said, Mom would be proud. He nodded, eyes glistening. You made sure she could be. The air grew cooler, the wind carrying the scent of rain again. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt cleansing. Sometimes, Lily said softly, I think people meet at the wrong time just so they can teach each other the right lessons later. Michael looked at her, his daughter, his redemption, and whispered, Then maybe this is our right time. She smiled. Yeah, maybe it is. As the first stars appeared, they sat in silence, hearts full, grief gentle. In that stillness, forgiveness had finally found a home. A few months later, spring arrived in full bloom. Grace House had become a heartbeat in the neighborhood. Children running through the garden, laughter echoing through the halls, hope returning to faces that once looked lost. Lily stood by the entrance, helping a little girl tie her shoelaces. The child looked up and asked innocently, Miss Lily, do you have a dad? Lily smiled softly, her eyes drifting toward Michael, who was painting a mural with some of the older kids, his sleeves rolled up, face smudged with color. Yeah, she whispered. I do now. The girl grinned. He looks nice. He is, Lily said. He just took a long time to find his way. Across the courtyard, Michael looked over and caught her gaze. Their eyes met, no words needed. It was a kind of connection built not on blood, but on forgiveness, effort, and the courage to start again. Inside the center, a small corner had been turned into a memorial space for Grace, her photograph surrounded by flowers and a plaque that read, For every heart that dared to love despite being broken. Michael stood there for a while, his fingers tracing her smile in the picture. I kept my promise, Grace, he murmured. She's safe, she's strong, and she's teaching me to live again. A soft hand rested on his shoulder. Lily stood beside him, her voice quiet. I think she already knows. They walked outside together, the late afternoon sun spilling across the courtyard in gold. Children laughed in the distance, their shadows dancing against the walls. The world didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt alive, forgiving. As they sat on the steps, Lily said, Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't met that night? Michael smiled gently. Every day, and every time, I thank fate for not letting me miss you twice. She leaned her head on his shoulder. For a man who once feared emotion, Michael now found peace in the simplest gestures, a shared silence, a tear wiped before it fell, a heartbeat that didn't echo alone anymore. The wind carried the faint sound of the wind chime from Grace's old house, distant but clear. It was as if she was still watching, still guiding them toward the light she'd always believed in. Before I met you, Lily said softly, I thought family meant having someone by blood. Now I think it means having someone who chooses you every day. Michael turned, eyes glistening. Then I choose you every day for the rest of mine. Lily smiled, tears shining in her eyes. And I forgive you for all the days you didn't. For a long time, they simply stayed there, father and daughter, hearts finally quiet after years of noise. If you believe love still wins, the narrator's voice whispers gently, Comment, Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. As twilight painted the sky in lavender and gold, Michael looked up at the first evening star and whispered, For you, Grace, for what we lost and what we found. Lily followed his gaze, smiling softly. She'd say we finally got it right. The sound of laughter floated again from the courtyard. The children were chasing fireflies now, their tiny lights flickering like scattered prayers. Michael and Lily stood to join them, walking barefoot through the grass. Michael held out his palm, catching one of the glowing insects and then letting it go. Lily watched it fly, her voice tender. You know what Mom used to say? That light always returns to where it belongs. He nodded, eyes following the firefly's path. Then maybe that's what forgiveness really is, finding our way back to the light. The last rays of the sun lingered on their faces, warm and gentle. The air hummed with life, and somewhere in that stillness, the weight of their past finally lifted. The world didn't need to know their story. It just needed to know that love, real love, always finds a way home. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the souls who carried this pain and still chose love over bitterness. One click can be a way of saying, I felt you. And as the lights inside Gray's house glowed brighter against the night, Lily closed her eyes for a moment. In her heart, she could almost hear her mother's voice, soft, proud, and full of peace. You found him, my love, and he finally found you. She smiled, whispering into the wind, I did, Mom. I really did. The wind carried her words upward, across the stars, where love never truly ends.